Hello there and welcome to the Celestial. I'm Daryl and in this video we'll be covering planets briefly. So planets, the first thing you think about when somebody mentions space, or at least in my case. But what is a planet really? According to the 2006 definition by the IAU, a planet must orbit a star, it must be big enough to have enough gravity to force itself into a spherical shape, and it must be big enough that its gravity clears away any other objects of similar size near its orbit. That last part is the most controversial as this is why Pluto is no longer a planet. Near Pluto's orbit are other objects of similar size, and if all of these objects were counted as planets, we're going to have way more than 9 planets in the solar system, so that's going to be a problem. Currently, the 8 known planets of our solar system are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Planet 9 if we can prove its existence. Outside our solar system, we have found 4,135 exoplanets, which are planets orbiting other stars. So as you can see, planets can be quite different from one another. So how are they classified? In the broader sense, planets are divided into rocky planets and giant planets, with the giant planets being divided into gas giants and ice giants. Okay, so what's the difference? Rocky planets are mostly solid, like the Earth. Giant planets are mostly gas but with a solid core, with the gas giants being made of mostly hydrogen and helium, and the ice giants being made of water, methane, and ammonia. Gas giants are usually very big and are the largest planets out there. Ice giants are usually smaller, and rocky planets are the smallest planets. Now, keep in mind that this is the broadest way to classify planets. The groups themselves can be divided into super-Earths, hot Jupiters, rogue planets, and more. Although planets can be vastly different from one another, they do have some similarities. All proper planets must orbit a star, and their orbits can have some characteristics such as eccentricity, which is how elongated the orbit is, inclination, which is how tilted the orbit is relative to the plane of the solar system, and semi-major axis, which is the average distance of the planet from the star. Kinda. Then when it comes to the planet itself, all planets have an axial tilt, which is how tilted the planet is, and rotation period, or how long a day on the planet is. All planets have mass, obviously, and their interiors have layers like the crust, mantle, outer core, and inner core. All planets have atmospheres, although their thickness varies from mega thick like those in the gas giant to barely counted like on Mercury. Most planets in the solar system have magnetic fields, but some don't. These fields come in varying strength. And lastly, some planets have rings and moons, and some don't. Fun fact, all giant planets have rings, not just Saturn. Okay, cool, so now we know what a planet is. There are similarities and there are differences. But why do planets exist? So the current theory is that planets and their stars are formed from clouds of gas and dust collapsing. A protostar is formed in the center and is surrounded by a protoplanetary disk. The actual planets are formed through a process called accretion, where particles accumulate to form larger objects. When the planet becomes Mars-sized, it forms an atmosphere and, depending on its location, gets more gases until it becomes a giant planet. All planets form the same, but what they become depends on their conditions. Inside the planets, the interior starts to differentiate, with the lighter material floating to the surface and the denser ones sinking to the core. When the protostar becomes a proper star, it blows away the remaining disk. All that remains are a lot of protoplanets, which collide until they form proper planets. The best analogy I can think of is many slow-speed car crashes until all you have is one large pile of metal and trapped people. So in conclusion, planets are big, round, and lonely, kinda. They have some similarities and are born in collisions. The end.